What are we talking about today? So it's Yom Haasmaut soon, and I thought it's good to do things in order. So rather than actually speak about the idea of a nation in the Torah, I want to speak about something that comes before the nation, before the state, and that is the household of Israel. In Hebrew, we use the word mishpacha to describe family. But in the Chumash, the word that's used is bait. And this is significant. And I want to tell you why. But first, I want to bring to your attention a saying among the Chachamim. The saying is, Eno nikar haor ela mitoch hachoshech. What this means is that one cannot, it's not that one cannot see the light, but through the darkness. So if you have darkness, then you can see the light, but it's more than that. It says, Eno nikar. The light cannot be discerned. So it's not just seeing, it's understanding. So to understand light, you have to start with darkness. So what I want to do for you today is as follows. The class is going to be divided into two parts. I want to first start with darkness, the alternative to the light. And what is the alternative to the light? So there is the pre-Torah pagan idea of the state, okay? And then there is the light. There is the Torah approach to the individual, to the family, and finally to the state. So I'm going to start with the Choshech. And I think by starting with the Choshech, we will get a greater understanding of the Or, of the light. Okay, just give me a moment, a technical issue here, but I believe I will be able to overcome it rather easily and quickly as well. Okay, so let me just complete my technical things and okay. All right, so let's start with pagan political thinking. And I said this is pre-Torah, but it's actually post-Torah as well. But in pagan political thinking, above everything, there is the sovereign. The sovereign can be a king. The sovereign can be the government. It doesn't matter whether the sovereign is a dictator, whether he's a despot, or whether he's duly elected, whether he's a legitimate leader. But the starting point is that there is a government, and all law comes by authority of the government. So first you start with the government, and from government you spread out, you have law. And from government, you have civilization. And from government, you have society. So that's a starting point. So let's look at the individual for a moment. So for an individual to survive, the question is, what allows him to survive? What gives the individual rights? Here's a question. Is it that the individual is endowed with rights? Or is it that the government bestows rights upon the individual? That's the question. And I will give you a moment, and let's see if we have any answers in the chat. And if not, I will answer the question myself. But you understand the question. So in pagan thinking, you have the government, and then you have the individual. So what's the relationship between the government and the individual? And it's as follows. It's as follows. Man cannot survive alone. Man is small compared to the world around him. And in order to survive, man requires a government that can protect him. So it is the government that gives man rights. It is the government that protects man and that it enables him to thrive in society. That's the starting point of pagan political thinking. And I see that Elliot Levy wrote, all men are created equal. They are endowed. Let me just mute everybody. So give me a moment here. I know there's a way to do this. Mute all. Okay. I'm going to do it now. Okay, so Eliot Levy writes, all men are created equal. They are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights or inalienable rights. That is the U.S. Government, the U.S. Constitution has actually adopted its perspective, not from pagan political thinking, but from Torah thinking, and that is correct. So the U.S. Constitution is actually a further evolution, but I don't want to go there. I want to go, and as is pointed by Jay Grossman, the U.S. Constitution has that is a revolutionary concept, correct? But it emanates from the Torah. And one day we can show the relationship between the Constitution and the Torah. That's a subject for a different class. But here's the thing. I want to go backwards now. I want to go before the U.S. Constitution. So we have a guy called Niccolo Machiavelli. Niccolo Machiavelli was an Italian Renaissance diplomat. He was a philosopher. He was a writer. And his best known book is The Prince. The Prince was written in 1513. I think he actually died by the time it was actually printed. But okay, so The Prince is considered one of the seminal works of political philosophy in the pagan or Gentile world. And he writes in chilling detail what he considers to be the appropriate use of brute force to achieve political objectives. And he actually goes into such detail that you know, for let's say a modern people such as ourselves, when you read The Prince, it's a little shocking. I don't even want to get into the terminology he uses to describe what a successful leader needs to do. But just give you an example. I'll just give you one example without going into the flowery descriptive language that Machiavelli uses. He refers to a person called Agathocles, who was the praetor of Syracuse. And this person, at this point in time, was not the ruler. What happened? He called a meeting of the city's elite, and he gave the signal, he gave an order, his soldiers came in, and they killed everyone, completely wiping out the old oligarchy, and he declared himself the ruler with no opposition, because in pagan political thinking, might is right. And Machiavelli has adopted the position that the way to attain power is through violence. Now, I want to emphasize the following. Once the leader attains power, once he's sovereign, he has the right to legislate laws. He has a right to run society. He has a right to govern. That's one of the most important things. And you might say, I'm sorry, somebody speaking?
And the unity of the Jewish people.
Yes. Complete the sentence, please. What is a sentence? Can you repeat yourself? I'm just not... Okay, I'm sorry. All right, let's continue. Now, I want to point out that this wasn't just Machiavelli who had this concept. This is actually deeply embedded in Greek political thought. And as you know, much of our ideas about government and democracy come from the Greeks. So there was a Greek philosopher called Callicles. He was from the 4th century BCE. And I want to read to you what Callicles says. He says as follows, and listen carefully, because again, I'm doing this not so much to teach you pagan political philosophy, because as I started the class, you can appreciate the wisdom of the Torah and the beauty of Judaism once you understand what it's coming against, what it's opposing. Okay, so let's continue along this line of thinking and go to Callicles again. In the 4th century BC, he writes the following. I'm reading it to you word for word. Right, meaning the right of the government, consists in the superior ruling over the inferior and having the upper hand. So he continues, and by superior, he means those who have the power. By inferior, he means those who are weak. And then Callicles continues and he says, by what right did Xerxes, by the way, Xerxes, who knows who Xerxes is? Let's see. Does anybody know who Xerxes is? He's talking about Xerxes. Xerxes was a military leader, and he asked a question, and I'll answer who Xerxes was. Let me finish the sentence of Callicles. By what right did, that's correct. Xerxes is Ahasuerus. Excellent. Okay. So he asked a question. Callicles asked, by what right did Xerxes invade Greece? And by what right did his father invade Scythia? These actions are in accordance with natural law. Okay. So I think you're understanding what this is about. What pagan political thinking is about is that the government is the most powerful. The people, the citizens, are weaker than the government. And by virtue of the fact that the government has the power to rule the people, they have the right to rule the people. Okay. Now you may say, well, that's so immoral. That's just empty of any logic. How can anybody accept it? So I want to tell you that there's a second part to the equation. Okay? There's a second part to the equation. So the first part to the equation is what we studied. There is ruthless power. There is violence. There is the sword. You have the sword. You have the power. And now you can rule the people who are weaker than you. Okay, so now the second part of the equation, and this is important to get the full picture. You heard of Thomas Hobbes? Thomas Hobbes was an English philosopher. He was considered to be one of the founders of modern political philosophy. And you'll see here that he kind of fills in what we read in The Prince. He fills in what we read in Callicles. He gives it a more gentle tone, let's say. So Hobbes is best known for his book, Leviathan. It's a book that was published in 1651. And here's what he says there. He says, man has no natural rights. Man is weak. He is subject to a cruel world around him. And the world around man can destroy man. So therefore, Hobbes asks in Leviathan, how does man survive? And the answer is, man, the individual man, gives up his power, gives up his rights to the Rex, to the king, to the government, and there is a social contract. The social contract says as follows: I will allow the government to tell me what to do. I will allow them to legislate laws. I will allow them to organize society and to force me to conform with their rules. In exchange, I will be protected by that same government. So, to summarize, man is weak, man needs protection. There are those men who are powerful, who have used ruthless violence to attain power. Those men, the powerful men, the kings, the despots, we will submit ourselves to those men, right? Just so you know, Thomas Hobbes in Leviathan, he actually uses the word master servant. So this is a word that he's using. We will be the servants, the slaves of these leaders, but in exchange, we get something very special. What is it that we get? We get protection. And I want to read to you one more quote as we get to the halfway point of this class, and then we're going to make the transition. We started with the Hoshech, right? So then we're going to make the transition to the Or in a moment. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol nהיה b'dbaro. Okay, so now we are continuing. I just want to read one last quote of Hobbes, okay? Lest you think that I perhaps have mischaracterized it. And it's as follows: that during, and this is directly out of Leviathan, that during the time men live without a common power to keep them all in awe, meaning man without the government, right? Without a common power, They are in that condition, which is called war. And such a war as is of every man against every man, meaning man, the natural state of man is every man is in the jungle and every man is fighting every other man. We need the government to come and rule us and tell us what to do. So we are the servants of the government and the government rules us. That's pagan political thinking. Okay, now, I understand that the United States of America, as a republic formed under the Constitution, is different than this. It's an evolution. I get it. My purpose here is not to teach the history of pagan political thinking and how it evolved into America, which is a great country. I'm starting with pagan political thinking, and I want to go to the Torah, because my purpose here is to teach Torah. So that's why we're making now the transition to the Torah. And I want to ask a question. How does the book of Bereshit start? It starts with Adam Harishon. Namely, Adam Harishon is an individual, and Adam Harishon, and here's the wisdom of the Torah. Adam Harishon is not a helpless creature. On the contrary, Adam Harishon is created Beselem Elohim, in the image of God. And the Torah actually says that Adam Harishon has dominion over the world around him. I just read to you a few of the Pesukim that you already know. When Adam is created, Hashem is speaking with the Malachim, and it says, "Vayomer Elohim na'aseh Adam b'samenu kidmutenu." And how does the pasuk continue? "Ve'yirdu bidgat hayam." Man will rule over the fish in the ocean, over Shamayim, behema, over the animals in the sky, over the animals on the land. Man, as an individual, has dominion. Man, as an individual, has power. And most importantly, man, as an individual, has rights. He is not an animal. He is created Beselem Elohim. Hashem talks to him. Adam talks to God. So the starting point is diametrically opposed to the Hoshech that we described, to the darkness that we described. So I want to ask a question. If man is in a perfect state, well, or is in a great state, let's say, when he is created, is there a way to improve him? That's my question. And let's see if anybody can venture an answer. Is there a way to improve him? What is the position of the Torah? Not our own opinions. What does the Torah say about man? So just to sharpen the question a little bit more. The Torah says, "Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa v'hine tov me'od." Hashem created the world. The world is perfect. It's wonderful. It's filled with an abundance of beauty and resources and wealth. And yet, Hashem says something, and I see that many of you on the chat are exactly on point. Yes, man should not be alone, right? And the pasuk says, on the one hand, it says, what Hashem made is tov me'od. What does Hashem say about Adam? Lo tov, right? So about the world, v'hine tov me'od. About Adam, lo tov heyot Adam levado. Man cannot be alone. It's not the state. A man's state is state. There is improvement. And how can he improve himself? I say lo, thank you, Yoni. I will make for man a companion. And what is this companion? So you say, well, okay, every biological life form has a companion, right? No, this is not that. This is an ezer kenegdo. This is somebody who is, number one, equal to him. Kenegdo literally means parallel. But kenegdo also means someone who will challenge him. So man can only reach perfection through this ezer. And Adam, together with Hava, they have an objective. What is the objective? And the answer is, the objective is to form a family. And I want to explain to you in Hebrew, how do you say the word family? So sometimes you have the word mishpacha, but the truth in the Torah and in the book of Shemot, when the first family comes to Egypt, what are they called? They're not called mishpacha. They are called bait. Why the word bait? So I call this class household, because bait also means house. And the family of the Torah is called the bait. So the pasuk says, Et Yaakov ishu beto ba'u. The bait came. So what is that about? So I want to explain this. First of all, let's go back to Adam and Eve. As I said, Adam and Eve are challenged with creating a new organization. It's not just about them being alone. They have to create something else. That's the family. And you may say, well, okay, so if it's just the family, so the relationship between individuals is similar to, you don't have water. In order to have water, the hydrogen and oxygen atoms have to be organized in a very specific way. So it's not just to have individuals, you can have, let's say, monkeys in the jungle. Is that a family? Oh, well, they have individuals, they have male, they have female, they have children. But that's not a family, that's not a bite. So you have to have a particular type of organization. So hydrogen and oxygen atoms just, roaming freely in the air is not water. There has to be a particular organization. And then that organization is water. So that's the first thing about family, bite. I'm going to get to the point why the word bite. But I want to point out that bite also means, so for example, in Perashat Noach, v'chafarta oto mibayit umihus, it says you have to put a particular type of tar. What does mibayit mean in Perashat Noach? Who knows what the word bayit means in Perashat Noach? Bayit means inside. You have to tar the walls of the teva from the outside and from the inside. Mibayit is from the inside, umihus. So what's the relationship between the word bayit and the Jewish concept of family? And the answer is very profound, because in the bayit, you can have special values and you can have unique norms that do not come from the state. Again, in pagan political thinking, the individual has no rights. He's weak. He needs the government to protect him. And by the way, in pagan political thinking, what gives you the right to make a family? When you get married, who recognizes the marriage? The government. That's why you need to have an agent of the government to perform the wedding. If you don't have an agent of the government perform the wedding, you may consider yourself to be married, but you're not legally married. In Judaism, do you need the government to perform the wedding? No, you don't. All you need is the man, who's the mekadesh, the isha, who's the mitkadeshet, and two adim. And if he gives her kiddushim in the presence of the two adim, and then he's machnis ota lachuppah, they're married. So why is this so important? Because through the bait means inside, you have the ability to create this unit. And in this unit, you have your own special values, your own set of rules, your own set of right and wrong. So the bait is really the answer and the solution to the despotic states of pagan thinking. In pagan thinking, the government tells you what to think, how to think, what you should be doing. It sets the tone for the reality that we perceive with our minds. But in Judaism, we have the bite. And because we have the bite, we develop an independent set of rules, an independent set of right and wrong. So here's what I want to tell you. We have 5 minutes. When the Jews come to Egypt, the Torah specifies, Et Yaakov Ishu Betobau. That's how the book of Shemot starts. So the book of Bereshit starts with the first individual. Adam and Chava, they cannot form a bite. They fail. Noah cannot form a bite. He fails. Avraham Avinu cannot form a bite. There's Ishmael. There's the children of the Keturah. Fails. Yitzhak cannot form a bite. Yaakov forms a bite. And when Yaakov Avinu goes to Mitzrayim, he goes Ish Ubeto. Every one of the Shevatim forms a bite. Why is that so important? And here it is. Because the Jewish people were in Egypt, and they made a great discovery. They discovered something that no Egyptian had the intellectual tools to discover. They discovered that they are slaves. But more importantly, they discovered that slavery is actually a bad thing. Because when you are in a dictatorship, when you are in a utopian society, no more beautiful place than North Korea, no more beautiful place than communist Russia, no more beautiful place than Cuba under Fidel Castro, right? These utopian societies, the worst sin you can do is to cry out for the wrongs of the system. Because if you cry out and you complain about the wrongs of the system, you are being insubordinate. You are being criminal. You are going to be punished for that crime. And yet the Jews were able to cry, and they understood, wait, hold on. Hold on. Yes, the news says that this is the right way to live. Jews should be slaves. We are all under the Pharaoh. We should be building buildings for the Pharaoh. The news says so. The commercials say so. The movie actors say so. The society around us all sings the same tune. And yet we made a discovery. We discovered there's something wrong with that tune. You know, I recently gave a class about Plato's cave. And in Plato's cave, for those of you who know the story of Plato's cave, a person breaks free from his shackles. He escapes the cave and he finds the light. And I said I said in the class that the amazing thing about the Jewish people is that we discovered the light. The person in Plato's cave discovers the light after he escapes. There's light coming from the outside. We discovered the light while we were deep inside the cave. And the way we did that is we did that because we had the bite. So the bite frees us from the subjugation, intellectual, spiritual subjugation of the state. And I'll end with the following thought. We have 2 minutes. Who brings the Korban Pesach? Who is the obligation of Korban Pesach upon? I'm going to give you now the opportunity to answer it on the chat. You have 10 seconds. Otherwise, I'll give the answer myself. And I'm sorry that I don't have the opportunity. I see that there's a lot of intelligent comments here, and I hope that you don't feel that I'm not taking your comments seriously. It's just, we have about a minute left now, so I really can't address all the comments. So if later on you want to reach me offline, I'd be happy to. I would be happy to do so. So who brings a Korban Pesach? The pasuk says, "Bevayit echad yachel." You know who brings a Korban Pesach? The family. Do you know that when you bring a Korban Pesach, you actually have to be nimna al habura? You have, before Pesach, before you bring the Korban Pesach, you have to say, I'm part of this family. And as a member of this family, I'm bringing the Korban Pesach. Because what led to the redemption of the Jews from Egypt? What gave us the intellectual tools to understand there's something wrong with this despotic state? The family. And that's why when you bring the Korban Pesach, it's the family that brings the Korban. So I'm going to end with the following thought in the 30 seconds we have left. And it's as follows. I love the state of Israel. I think it's amazing that Hashem has done this tremendous chesed, really, a chesed with Am Yisrael. We have here the opportunity to bring about Yemot HaMashiach, the Messianic era. There's not even a question that we can do it. But it's also important that we have the right order. We have to emphasize the importance of family, that we don't want to create a state where we can be despotically ruled by people like Yarovam ben Nevat, who was a despotic Jewish leader, by people like Menashe ben Chizkiah, who was a despotic Jewish leader. We need to always emphasize the Bayit. We have our values. We know what the Torah values are. Those values are always maintained by Yaakov Avinu, by the Shevatim, by the Bayit, and it's always the Korban Pesach. Why is that so important? Because the state can never fool us. They can never tell us what to do. If it's against the Torah, we don't listen to the state. That's what happens in the story of Hanukkah. A lot more to say about this. I know I'm jumping from subject to subject and from holiday to holiday. I'm sorry. It's just like trying to cram it all in one shot. Not easy. But nevertheless, I thank the SCA for organizing this day of learning and for giving me the opportunity to teach you all. It's a zechut that I get to teach you all Torah. And I think if I understand the schedule correctly, it is now time to pray mincha. Shalom, get me a siddur.